Cool. Okay. So hello, Aoibheann. She's today's our guest. Let me introduce her. So she's a PADI Master Instructor. She has more than 10 years of experience teaching scuba diving and 7 years in marine conservation. She has done more than 4,000 dives, which means she has spent more than 100 days underwater. So imagine that. It's like crazy time underwater, a lot of experience. Her favorite marine animal is the green turtle or the little blue red limpet in Ireland. And she's the creator of corareefbeauty.com website, YouTube channel Aoibheann Dive Pro, and IG account Surface Below Ireland and Coral Reef Beauty. Wow, what an introduction. Did I miss something?
That was fantastic.
Cool. So thank you so much, Aoibheann, for your time, for being here. We are making history because this is the first interview of this account. So let's start. Are you ready?
All good?
All good? Cool. Okay, so let's start talking about a little bit of diving, scuba diving, what we share, the love we share. And so please tell us about the beginning of your career as a dive instructor, when you start, where, what was your motivation to start to get into this industry? So tell us, please.
So I guess like all kind of ocean lovers and dive instructors, it all starts back in your childhood. And I was very lucky to grow up along the northwest coast of Donegal in Ireland. So if anyone doesn't know about it, have a look. It is one of the most beautiful coastlines in the world. And basically I grew up like snorkeling and swimming and just spending the summers outside. So it was such a privilege to be able to create this connection with the ocean. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of led me on to do a degree in marine science in Ireland, in Galway. And during my degree, a guy came into one of our lectures, and he was telling us about this citizen science project, volunteer project in Mozambique, in Tofu. So of course I was like, this looks amazing. It was working with whale sharks, with dolphins, with turtles, and it was like a dream for any ocean lover. And I went in my first year and I did my open water course and my advanced course there, and I saw coral reefs for the first time. And it was just absolutely mind-blowing. So kind of from that, I was like, this is what I want to do. And so straight after my degree, I went and did my dive master course in Bali, where I had two incredible instructors, one who's now a really famous photographer, Henley Spears, and another guy called Thomas Mackenzie. And they were just such inspiring people and instructors and mentors. And I guess that led me on then to do my instructor course. And I actually did that in Thailand. And it's funny because the connection so we all were watching the big cave rescue of the schoolboys in the cave in Thailand.
Oh, yeah,
one of my, yeah. Oh, so that amazing rescue, one of my instructors in Thailand, one of my mentors was actually one of the instructors, Klaus, that was on that rescue. So they were just incredible people to work with. And yeah, and then I ended up in the Philippines, and I was there as a beginner instructor, and I grew as an instructor. I grew as a diver, as a person, as a human being. And that kind of led me in then to more marine conservation. So it's been an incredible career.
Yeah, so you were doing the IDC while these guys were lost in the cave, or it was different times?
It was because I did my IDC about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But one of the instructors that was leading part of the cave rescue was one of my instructors 10 years ago in Thailand. Yeah.
Because I don't remember, that accident was like 5, maybe 6 years ago. I don't remember.
It was only a few years ago. Yeah, it was quite recent.
Okay. Got it. Wow, amazing. So yeah, you had such inspiring people.
Big time. Like that really created my motivation, I guess, kind of following these amazing instructors. And I guess that's what led me to want to be one of these mentors and one of these motivators.
Yeah, sure. So what's the most rewarding part of being a scuba diving instructor?
Oh, there's so many. I guess it would be, I guess, just seeing how people overcome fears and you're helping them kind of, you're empowering these people to kind of get in the ocean. You're introducing this underwater world for the first time. Like the first time they see a clownfish, they see coral reefs, they see turtles, and just the reaction and being able to connect somebody to the ocean. And then like at the end of the day, we will protect what we love, right? So you're kind of that first person to really connect them. And I just think that's one of the most rewarding things ever about being an instructor.
Hmm.
That, and I guess just the people you meet. Like I've been so lucky over the years to meet just so many people from all over the world who come together, I guess, for something that they love, and being able to spend days hearing about their stories. And of course, you end up telling your story quite often, but you
That's
get to
right.
ask them and talk to them and hear their stories, and you learn so much from these people. So I guess the
Everyone has
people,
a different story, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And we can all learn from each other for sure.
So have you found like your best friends in the doing scuba diving or outside the industry?
Definitely. Like I was very lucky, I guess, growing up in Derry, so in Ireland, and I had a really strong group of close friends that I'm still in really, really good connections with, even after years of being abroad. But I guess when you're working abroad, one of the things is you kind of create your own families and your own friendships. And to this day, like I've made some of the closest bonds, and that's all been through my instructor career. I'm so lucky to have those people in my life now, like you.
Yeah, I know. I know our stories are very similar because when I went to the Philippines, so for the people that don't know, Ethan was my instructor for the dive master course, for the instructor course also. And then I felt the same connection. So you are like a ocean lover and marine lover. We love seeing animals in the water. It's amazing. And that gave me like a lot of inspiration and a lot of willing to become a dive instructor. So yeah, so you are like a role model for me also.
Aw. And you're an inspiration to me.
Thanks. Cool. So okay, so we talked about the most rewarding part, and now what is like the most challenging part of being a dive instructor?
I guess I think for me over time was really the distance from family and
Okay.
from friends from home. It definitely takes its toll after so many years. And overall, I guess I was working away for about 8 years, and um, kind of finding that place in the world, like where do you really belong? And luckily for me, I was in the Philippines for such a long time. It did become home for me. Um, but I definitely feel like I've missed out on a few things, like a few important times. I've missed out from friends and from family, but I have recently relocated back home, so I'm rebuilding those connections again, and just making the most of it. And I have absolutely no regrets, but it's definitely some of the most challenging times.
And what about like the functions or like the task you have to execute as dive instructor? At the beginning,
So,
it was challenging. Share us
oh,
about those beginnings of you as a scuba diving instructor, because I feel like everything in life at the beginning is tough at the start. So yeah, share with us that part.
definitely, like as a new instructor, just building that confidence and you taking others for the first time underwater and teaching them a course to try and help them develop their skill. It's terrifying, and like you might not feel so confident in yourself, but you have gone through the training and you do have the skills to be able to teach people how to dive, but it's just kind of building that confidence up in yourself, and you get that reward and you build that up through your students as time goes. I think probably one of the, especially at the beginning, one of the most challenging parts would have been the energy needed. Like looking back when I first had my first main job in El Nido in Palawan, beautiful place. We were doing like 3 to 4 dives a day, and you would have up to, 3 or 4 students for a course. And then as soon as that course is finished, you're then starting another course. So the energy kind of put into, the physical, but also the mental energy that you needed. And you're just absolutely exhausted. But you do build, again, you just build that up over time. And the important thing is not to overwhelm yourself and just take it slow and kind of celebrate the successes, but also debrief every day and kind of really learn kind of what went well, what could I improve on, and work with your confidence, and you will then become this incredible instructor and build up that energy for it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy. I agree with that. Cool. Okay, so let's move to the next topic. You already told us about a little bit of your beginning in marine conservation. So you start working marine conservation in the Philippines, or in Mozambique, right?
I guess that started off, I was just as a volunteer in Mozambique.
Okay.
So it was a citizen science project tagging, IDing and tagging whale sharks and manta rays. And it was absolutely incredible. And I remember kind of just getting in the water for the first time, waiting for the whale shark to kind of come past, and just your heart's going, and just this huge gigantic creature just comes out of the darkness, and it's possibly the most magic time. Slightly terrifying for the first time, but amazing. Yeah. And just be able to see how important I guess data collection is in terms of monitoring these creatures in the waters, and there's so little that we know, so it's just trying to find as much information, and that really, I guess, put an indent into my diving career. So over the years, obviously I wanted to first focus on just becoming a confident dive instructor, and then in my time in El Nido, so I worked for 3 years as dive instructor there, and there was this incredible woman called Sam Craven who is working for the Reef World Foundation, and she came to do a green fins assessment in the dive center. So green fins is this management approach to help reduce environmental impacts by working with the diving industry, so with tour operators and with snorkel and dive businesses. And that really kind of planted a seed, and I was like, okay, we need to really focus on how we can reduce our impact. We are going into the ocean. It's not our place, it's not our home. And the diving industry and snorkeling industry does have a huge impact if it's done incorrectly, a huge negative impact. So it's really important that we try our best, and as instructors, that we then train our students to have that respect and have the knowledge to have minimum impact as possible. So that then kind of planted that seed. And then after my time in El Nido, I wanted to get more involved in marine conservation. So I find this wonderful organization called Marine Conservation Philippines in Negros Oriental, another island in the Philippines, and that's where I met you. And met so many incredible people, and ended up actually working and becoming a green fins assessor, trained by Sam, and was able to actually go out and assess other dive centers. So that was a really rewarding part of it all as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And now in Ireland, have you worked on conservation, on marine conservation?
So I've been working just previously, I was working for a lovely little activity center, and the focus was on spreading marine awareness and ocean literacy through activities, through connecting people with the oceans. I love a place called Sea Synergy. down south of Ireland. And it was just amazing to get back into schools and work with just the general public on going out on seashore safaris and looking at just all the different creatures along the coastline. And then also working with community groups and doing beach cleanups and just to see what's going on here in Ireland. And there's so much happening, which I've obviously been away for years, I haven't realized. So it's been a really lovely introduction into the world of marine conservation here.
Amazing, amazing story. Okay, so now tell us about you have a lot of experience in marine conservation. Tell us about the challenging parts of working in this field.
I guess there's always just more that you can do. I think over the years working for smaller organizations, you have a project and you just want to do more and more because you are so passionate about it. But I think the importance is to celebrate the small successes and really empower the community that's around. Basically create like you're basically giving ownership to those living locally, but also all over. Like we're all responsible what happens to our oceans right now, whether we're living on the coastline or living inland. We can all make a difference. So it's just really important that you kind of create and spread the awareness so people do understand and people know how to make those changes. But also then, of course, take action and work with government. And I guess the biggest influence in the Philippines, we did a lot of work with local government units and with local communities. So to really see these groups kind of taking, and youth groups as well, and taking ownership and going out and leading their own beach cleanups and kind of doing their own education projects. It was incredible to see. So it's just kind of doing as much as you can, but within, what's possible, and celebrating those successes and keep on spreading and creating that awareness.
Yeah, and I think little actions, it doesn't matter if it's just pick up a plastic bag from the beach. I think those little actions add more, and you never know what's going to happen in the future, right? You
Absolutely.
can build a movement or something big, right?
Absolutely, definitely. So important. If everyone makes little changes in their life, it will lead to something huge.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Okay, so now tell us about the most rewarding moment or part of being in marine conservation field.
I guess, yeah, I touched on it a little bit just before, but just seeing like community groups that you're involved in training with, want to be able to kind of assess their own, like for example, we did a capacity building program in Marine Conservation Philippines, and we trained teams of local government units to actually go out and be able to scuba, we trained them in reef monitoring so that they could go out and actually assess their own MPAs, and that way they could actually help then protect the fisheries and work with community groups there. So to be able to kind of train and mentor those in a field that maybe there was a gap missing, and then be able to empower those to kind of go on and lead their own assessments and their own kind of campaigns and so on in terms of protecting their environment. It was just so rewarding to see. Really, really cool. And just seeing the changes. And then I guess working with so many amazing groups, those partnerships and connections, like the marine industry is such a small world. And like even coming back to Ireland, seeing how people here have been connected with people I've come across, in the last 10 years. It's just, and it's been amazing. And I guess especially in Ireland, it's such a small field. It's like everyone is connected in some way. So it's been really nice to kind of reconnect with people I even did my degree with back at, 12 years ago. So it's been really, really rewarding.
Nice. Okay, so you mentioned like the empowering local communities, right?
Really.
How is like, just tell us a little bit, how's the reception at the beginning of the reach to these communities? Is it hard to reach them? they're at the beginning like cautious about the people that are getting there, or how was the process in general with the communities?
Definitely, it can be challenging at times, especially if you're coming from a, an international culture.
Mm.
If you're a visitor to a country, it's all about, I guess being in the Philippines for so many years and getting to really know the culture and getting to connect with people and kind of understanding how, just how, just the way people lived and the difference between different cultures and respecting those differences. It's vital, it's crucial. And obviously you're coming in with lots of ideas and so on, but it's building those relationships and building the trust and the rapport with people, with individuals, and showing up. And I guess that all comes back down to trust and just being there with them. And I guess as an instructor, you have that that access to do that because you have a knowledge base. You're bringing in a team of that want to be there, that want to learn. So they're trusting you that you will train them to the high standard that you're saying. So you have such a responsibility in that. And through the course, you're seeing people's fears, you're seeing people, people's successes, people challenging, like having their challenges, breaking down, and so on. So you're working with them to really build them up, and that itself creates such a great bond and great connection. And I guess that goes to any of students that I've had in the past, like just creating these amazing relationships.
Yeah, that part is incredible, how you help them to build their confidence. It's amazing.
And I think also knowing when to kind of, okay, they now have got it, and to let them kind of spread their wings and fly, that you don't let them empower, that you let them have the independence, and as long as they're safe and within their limits and so on. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's move on. So you have worked in 3 different countries in marine conservation, in Mozambique and Philippines and Ireland. So tell us a little bit, what are the similarities you find in marine conservation for the 3 countries, or just the Philippines and Ireland? And what are the differences? I don't know, maybe the government is better in Ireland, or the policies are better in Ireland than in Philippines. I don't know, whatever you have in mind.
I guess similarities is there's so much happening, and there's so many organizations that are out there doing incredible work. And what I've kind of just, and I'm just kind of on the tip of the iceberg back here in Ireland, but just seeing how many like citizen science projects are happening. Was really nice. I started diving with this lovely dive club, the Kerry Aqua Club, and I was able to actually get trained up as a sea search observer. So I can actually like just go out and take photos of what we're seeing and be able to record that onto a database that's shared. And I find in Ireland, there seems to be a lot of, again, on the tip of the iceberg, but there seems to be a lot of great communication between these different kind of organizations, and it all seems to kind of share the same databases. So you can go online and you can find out what creatures you're finding where on the coastline, and everyone seems to be connected and working together. But that's what happens when it's a small country, with I guess in terms of population compared to the Philippines, it's a huge difference. And I guess it makes the communication and the collaborations just a little bit easier. However, in the Philippines, you still like have these wonderful partnerships and collaborations within different organizations, whether they're international or local. And yeah, there's so much incredible work happening there. I think the pandemic was a huge hit, a negative hit on the Philippines, and everywhere, of course. Yeah, but I feel like Ireland has more resources to keep going with these, with the different programs. There's more funding, there's more money there. Whereas in the Philippines, so many organizations and operations had to stop. Marine Conservation Philippines. but now they're now up and running again, which is really, really nice to see. Yeah. So I guess those are the bigger challenges or the biggest differences I see.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I was in the question about coral reefs. So you're the creator of the corareefbeauty.com website. So tell us about a little bit, when did it start and why?
So I guess through lockdown, well, sorry, basically all through my diving, I've just loved to photograph corals and the structures, like the little polyps and the different growth forms, different species. And I think really through lockdown, when we were, well, after lockdown, and we were starting to be able to go out and dive again. And I was able to really kind of focus on corals and just my love for them. I just think they're incredible animals and just so colorful, so beautiful. And I've been taking photos kind of my whole dive career. And I just decided it would be really nice to actually start showcasing them. And again, for those who, like through family and friends who haven't got the chance to be underwater, to actually see how amazing these animals are. And the colors and just the incredibleness of them all. So, and also just a kind of site to kind of, again, to promote conservation that's happening locally in the Philippines, but also what was going on in Ireland, and just to spread awareness of the importance of coral reefs and what they are and why we need them and how our effects can really harm them. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So for the people, don't worry, I'm gonna put the link in the description to check Ethan's photo. They're amazing. They're amazing. I love it. You can check also the Instagram account because you have a website and Instagram account, right? So you're gonna find like people that want to see your work. They're gonna find the same photos in the website and in the Instagram, or they're different.
They're a bit different. There's probably a few more on Instagram. But obviously, if anyone wants any advice on just taking macro photography of corals, I'm not using a big setup. I'm using a very minimal setup.
Which camera is?
The Olympus TG4 or TG6. I was using a TG4 for a long time, and I upgraded to TG6. Oh. And they're just the most amazing little cameras. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, so it's been really nice just to share photographs of coral reefs, and also there's some other photos on there as well of kind of different things I've seen over the years. And then what's been really nice when I started diving back here in Ireland, I was just completely blown away by the marine life that was here, and just the diversity and just the colors as well. Like I guess because being away for so long, and pretty much most of my diving has been in the tropics. So to kind of come back and get into colder waters and with these amazing inspirational divers that really helped me kind of get my confidence in cold waters and in a dry suit as well. And just being able to photograph Irish waters and the marine life that we can see there, it's just been really, really nice.
What is really like the main difference you have found from the reefs in Ireland and those in the Philippines?
I guess the substrate. So in the Philippines, like you have your sandy areas, your seagrass meadows, and then you have your coral reefs. Whereas I find here, at least where I was diving in Kerry, it was very much walls that were just covered in like different animals, such as your jewel anemones and feather stars, and you have big lobsters coming out, and your kelp forest. So just completely different colors and just completely different feel about it. Still, like, it was amazing. Like, I expected kind of really bad visibility, and I expected really rough waters. There was some days that was quite rough, but yeah, just with surge, and obviously it's the wide Atlantic wave, right? So you're getting some big winds in, but you would obviously make sure you go out when it's safe. And just, yeah, just the colors is just such a surprise, and the visibility was so much better than I thought.
Oh,
So
really?
that was nice.
Like
Yeah.
normally the average visibility you would say is how much meters, how many meters?
I guess over the summer and autumn that I was diving, probably the
Mhm.
average was 8 to 10 meters. Like, and we had some days that was up to 15.
Oh,
The water's a bit greener potentially, but it's still really, really clear at times.
okay. And the worst, like the worst day of visibility, you would say,
Probably 3 to 4.
wow,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But then you
Wow.
could have that in the Philippines after a bad storm.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same here. I'm here in the Caribbean coast, and there are like 32 rivers around all this region. So when it rains, visibility goes to 1 meter
Yeah, yeah. I think
everywhere.
that's quite similar to the east coast of Ireland. I think the viz can be pretty bad there. I think people that learn to dive there are really real divers.
Okay, yeah, right. And what about the currents? Did you find like a stronger currents in Ireland than in the Philippines? Because in the Philippines, we had some rough dive sites, right?
Definitely. There was a lot of current dives where we would have to do some drift dives. Where we were diving in the Philippines, actually, like every now and then we would get a bit of a drift, but we were always diving around the tides because the tides are much larger here, and they have a much bigger effect, I suppose. Um, we had to really dive around those tides and make sure we were in the right locations.
Mhm.
So it was always very manageable.
Okay. Oh, amazing. And how's the cold there in Ireland? How was it like the first dive in cold water for you? How was it?
It was very cold. Like
Yeah.
I was wetsuit diving up until 2 months ago.
Wow.
So I started in 10-degree water up to, and it did actually increase up to, I think 15 was the highest, and that nearly felt kind of lovely
Oh my
in a
God.
wetsuit
Yeah.
eventually. And then as soon as the temperature started dropping, and just with the temperature outside, it was time to make the change.
Mm.
And just the effect the cold has on your thinking, like
Yeah, it's
I
terrible.
exactly. And I was so glad to be with a group of divers that I felt very like I had a lot of confidence in, because
Mhm.
um, I was in a completely different environment, a completely new environment. And I think this is really important. Like, no matter how many dives you have, no matter how experienced an instructor you are, or how experienced you feel in the water, if you change environments, just take it slow, and take it step by step. Because I was a bit nervous with all these different things going on,
Mhm.
changing environment, but with time and building up in my confidence, and then getting into a dry suit, and then being able to think again because I wasn't so cold, it was
Yeah.
just an incredible feeling. I felt really like a diver again.
Oh, nice, nice experience. So when you're using a wetsuit, how thick was it?
The wetsuit I had was only a 5 mil,
Wow.
but was like a 7, supposedly. And
Okay.
I was I was wearing like another layer underneath, and obviously your hood and gloves and so on.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And still you got cold
Oh
with
yeah.
all that gear on.
Oh yeah.
And in
And
a
I guess
dry
that's
suit,
in a dry suit, my hands might have got a little bit cold, and that was it. It was incredible.
oh my God, 10 degrees. I can't believe, because here in this area where I am is special because it's not that warm during the summer. Well, there's no summer here. It's like the rainy and the dry season. So
Yeah.
during the rainy season, it's warm, but during the dry season, the sunny one, it's cold. So
Right.
and it gets like 19 degrees, and it was 20 degrees with that 3 millimeters wetsuit. Forget it. For me,
It's cool. I remember having that type like those. I remember even in the Philippines, if it dropped 1, 2 degrees,
And you
in
feel it.
January, February. You felt it, and it was definitely cold water for sure. I don't
Wow.
know how I managed a wetsuit in Ireland for so long. When I look back, having been in the dry suit now for a few dives, I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
Wow, my God. And how long were the dives? Like in minutes?
From 30 to 45 minutes. The
Okay.
thing is, I got really distracted because I would always be taking photos and just soaking up all the incredibleness of the marine life. So I would actually get a bit distracted, and yeah, it was just amazing diving. But it was definitely, I would come up and it would take me a long time. I wouldn't be able to do a second dive, like a repetitive dive. I would only be able to do one dive, and
One dive.
it took me so long to warm up afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, wow. What a cool experience.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, so let's move on to our questions. And what would you say to a person who is not a scuba diver, but that person wants to contribute to coral reef conservation? Do you think that is there a way everyone might help to protect coral reefs?
I guess the key is education and learning about what coral reefs are, how they help ecosystems around the world, how they help us, and just how they help our natural world. I think by learning about them, and then like not everyone has the opportunity to experience them, but we've had these wonderful documentaries that we can learn so much about coral reef ecosystems. So by learning about them, we will then respect them, and then that will then help us love them and protect them. Obviously, coral reefs have a huge, there's a huge threat right now with ocean acidification and climate change, and they're such sensitive animals that even a couple of small degrees, they can cause huge destruction on reefs with coral reef bleaching, and that will lead to then just to death. And we're seeing that every day. We saw that with our own eyes over the years in the Philippines on local reefs, and just seeing how the change in temperature but also the impact humans had, and divers, and the local impacts and how that affected the reefs was really, really sad to see at times. So I think learning about them and getting to know the importance of these reefs, and like any ecosystem, especially like even in Ireland, we have our kelp forests. There's so many seagrass meadows around Ireland, and there's so little I guess surveyed and so little known about them and understood. Like we're getting like 50 to 80% of our oxygen from the ocean. Like most people believe that most of our oxygen comes from trees and terrestrial plants, but it's actually coming from the sea. And so it's education is the key. So learn about it, and then see what you can do locally, see what small changes you can make in your life to help reduce these pressures globally.
Do you have any recommendation of a documentary people can watch? Or what's your favorite documentary about this topic?
Any David Attenborough documentaries.
Yeah. I love
They're
him.
all just so incredible, and he just passes the message on so gently, so respectfully, and just the visuals of it all are just beautiful. But I'm sure most people do watch them.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. And for scuba divers, how they can contribute, we can contribute as scuba divers to protection of the coral reefs?
I guess already for scuba divers, most people have the love and the connection with the ocean, and that's why they've gone on to become divers. But I think what's really, really vital, what's really important is just having the awareness of the diver and the impact that you can have on the reefs. Yes, if it's just you out there, like with your buddy, there's very minimal impact. But like we were seeing in the Philippines, at certain dive sites, you're having over 100 divers every single day, and that has a huge effect on the reefs themselves and the ecosystem. So I think finding a good dive center that is eco-friendly and will be very environmentally responsible, but also taking the responsibility yourself to learn about it. And there's an amazing course. So I mentioned green fins there.
Mhm.
There's actually a course that's come out this year, and it's for divers, but there's also a course for lead divers, so for dive masters, for instructors. And I think it's a course that everyone should do, no matter who you're training with, what organization you're training with. Honestly, I think a lot of it's down to your instructor and your mentor,
Okay.
and how you're trained at the beginning. I think, like, over the years of training, that first course, like that first open water course or intro dive, is the key to kind of get that respect and that knowledge in there. And also how we dive, like the skills that we need to be able to dive safely, of course, but also in a position that you're not going to cause any damage. So like work on the trim, work on buoyancy control. These courses that Greenfins does talks all about this, and it's an incredible introduction. So I really recommend that. It's such a, and I think for instructors and for dive guides and professionals out there, you know, every student, like it's difficult and can be challenging at times, but if you start teaching a student from the beginning the right, like, or the the kicking techniques and the finning styles to have good buoyancy control, like get in the frog kicks, get in your back kicks and your helicopter turns, all of these things, and it's all about your breathing techniques and how you control your buoyancy using your lungs, not just to be overweighted or um, kind of use your BCD to control everything. It's all about how you use your lungs and your control. And and that will actually lead to you being a much safer diver, as well as a more environmentally responsible diver.
Yeah, as a divers, we can do a lot and contribute to protection of coral
Definitely.
reefs. Cool. Okay,
And
so
support organizations that are doing wonderful things.
yeah, for sure. And I think the Greenfields course is free, right?
There's a small donation.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So you
very
give a
small
small
donation.
donation, you can have a beautiful course and learn a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna put the description of the course here also in the description. All right. So our final question. Tell us about your first immersion of your life. How was it? When? How old were you? And do you like it or not?
I guess my first immersion was, my first dive would have been when I was 19 in Africa, in
Okay.
Mozambique. But I want to talk about an experience I had. I was very lucky. My sister lives in in Australia,
Okay.
and
Wow.
I was able to, on my 9th birthday, as a family, we went over to visit her, and we were very lucky to get to go up to the Barrier Reef, and we did a day trip out, and that's where I had my first like kind of snorkel experience on coral reefs, and that really kind of really planted a seed about for wanting to kind of be under the sea as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the surface and just seeing all the reefs and the colors and all the different structures, and then also you have all your tropical fish, and it was just amazing. And then this huge Napoleon wrasse passed by, and I was
Wow.
just blown away. And I saw two divers. They were doing an intro dive, I think, at the time,
Mhm.
and they were able to stay underwater, and I was like, I want to be them. I want to stay underwater. Why can't I do this? So that then kind of, I guess, in my head, all through school, through like my childhood, it was like that was the goal, to get diving. And then it wasn't until I was 19 that I go and do the whale shark conservation project in
Yeah.
Mozambique. And I remember my first dive very clearly with this, my wonderful first instructor, Dennis.
Mhm.
And it was myself and another classmate of mine from Galway, from our marine science class. And I remember us seeing a Moorish idol for the first time. And
Mhm.
that fish just stood out with its long, its long head and the colors. And I think I just sat and stared at it for about a good solid 5 minutes, just
Wow.
watching it go around and peck at around the corals, and I was just amazed, and seeing the colors and the different structures, and I was just blown away. So that was my first. I wasn't nervous. I guess I grew up as a swimmer, so I grew up in the water, and I was quite confident in the water. So
Okay.
there wasn't much fear at all. It was just complete exhilaration and excitement.
Okay. Yeah. And what a first experience in the Great Barrier, right? Like one of the best
Amazing.
spots for coral
Yeah.
reefs and to spot all
But
these.
it's funny, like thinking back to that day that we were snorkeling, I remember because the boat, like a lot of tour boats, you have, the top deck, but you've got a deck underneath that you can, with glass windows, and you can see out. And I actually remember watching, because there, like I always say, everyone jumps in at one time. And I remember watching people standing on the corals. And I remember really seeing one piece chunk of coral snap off and fall. And I'm being like, that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that much, but I knew that just this was not good.
It's
And I think that
natural. Yeah.
maybe planted something also in my head.
Oh, wow. Such a
Yeah.
nice experience. Wow. Incredible. Okay, so that was our final question. So thank you so much, Ethan, for your
So
time.
welcome. Thanks for having me. It's great to talk about diving.
Yeah, I know. It's great, right? So thank you so much for your time, sharing all these experiences with the audience. So remember to follow Ethan in her social media accounts in Instagram, Surface Below Ireland, and Coral Reef Beauty. Also check her website, corareefbeauty.com, and her YouTube channel, which she has a video with 22,000 views. So that's big. Her YouTube channel is Ethan Dive Pro. So don't worry if you didn't get this information. I'm gonna put all of this in the description, and you can check Ethan's social media. So thank you again, Ethan. I don't know
Thank
if you
you,
have
Louis.
final words for the audience, whatever you want to say.
I guess just keep connecting with the sea and just learning as much as possible. And, we will end up protecting what we love. So, yeah, just keep loving it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and
You're
have
welcome.
a good day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.